Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode the corporate world for you. Today we're diving into Veritone's latest proxy statement, which, let's be honest, sounds about as thrilling as watching paint dry. But stick with me because buried in the legal jargon are some interesting details that could impact your investment future of the company. We'll break it down so you don't have to. This document is a Schedule 14A. Also known as a proxy statement. Companies file these before their annual stockholder meetings to tell investors about the issues they'll be voting on. Think of it as a cheat sheet for the big company decisions. This year's meeting is in June of 2025, and there are several key proposals we need to unpack. First, keep in mind that this is a preliminary statement. Things could change before the final vote, but let's see what Veritone's board is recommending. The first order of business is electing 2 directors. Veritone has a staggered board, meaning not all directors are elected every year. This year, it's time to choose Class 2 directors to serve until 2028. The nominees are Knut Kurtz and Michael Zillies. Next up is ratifying, which means approving the appointment of Grant Thornton L. as the independent accounting firm for the year. Companies need auditors to check their financial statements and make sure everything looks legit. Then there's an advisory vote on executive compensation, often called say on pay. It's non-binding but gives stockholders a chance to voice their opinion on how the top executives are being paid. The big one is a proposal to increase the number of authorized shares of common stock. They want to double it from 75 million to 150 million. This doesn't mean they're issuing that many shares right away, but it gives them the option to do so in the future. Veritone also wants to amend its corporate charter to exculpate, which means protect from liability its officers to the extent permitted by Delaware law. Finally, stockholders are asked to vote on an amendment to restate the 2023 Equity Incentive Plan. For each of these proposals, the board recommends voting for. That's their official stance. Now let's dig a little deeper. Governance is about how a company is run and how the board safeguards your investment. The board says that it has affirmatively determined that a majority of their directors are independent. That means they don't have a close relationship with the company. This is crucial for good oversight. Risk oversight is a big deal for any company. This section discusses how the board manages risk. The audit committee handles financial risk. The compensation committee looks at risks tied to how executives are paid. ESG, environmental, social, and governance is a topic that a lot of investors care about. It covers a company's impact on the planet and on society. Veritone highlights that they are a remote-first organization. That means their employees primarily work from home. It says it reduces their environmental impact since people aren't commuting to an office. Veritone has a code of business conduct and ethics, which applies to everyone, including the top executives. This code is designed to ensure people act honestly and ethically. Here we find the bios of the leaders who are in charge of the direction of the company. The president and CEO is Ryan Steelberg. He has been at Veritone from the very beginning. The executive vice president, chief financial officer, and treasurer is Michael Zemitra. Executive pay is always something stockholders are very interested in. Both Ryan Steelberg and Michael Zemitra have 2023 employment agreements. In 2025, Steelberg has a base salary of $665,000 and is eligible for a bonus. Michael Zemetra's base salary was recently raised to $425,000. Now let's get to the actual numbers. This table lays out the compensation for the top executives in 2024 and 2023. As and Ryan Steelberg's total compensation for 2024 was about $3.8 million. A big chunk of that was in stock awards, valued at over $3 million with almost $1 million in stock awards. The SEC requires companies to show the link between executive pay and company performance. This can be a bit of an eye-opener. The numbers that stand out are that Ryan Steelberg was paid $2,176,330.22, was paid only $1,020,990.90, and the amount of net income is still negative. Moving on to director compensation, we find some interesting facts. Non-employee directors earn cash fees for board service and committee work plus stock awards. This is where things get a little tricky. The company is party to agreements with Steel Holdings LLC, an entity affiliated with Chad Steelberg, a former executive and board member. Veritone paid Steel Holdings $1 million in July 2024, as well as $50,000 per month ongoing until December 2025. This can be viewed as controversial. It is the company's previous CEO making an additional high amount of money. This table outlines shares authorized for issuance under equity compensation plans. A lot of the executive and employee compensation comes from stocks, so let's take a look at that. Tablet reports that total number of securities to be issued upon exercise of outstanding options are nearly 13 millions, with another 4.2 millions of securities remaining available for future issuance. This shows who owns the most stock in the company. We see Ryan Steelberg holds about 13% of the stock, Chad Steelberg owns 9.5%, and Associate Group Holdings owns 79%. Let's make sure the top dogs are following the rules. This section says that all of our officers, directors, and greater than 10% stockholders have complied with all applicable Section 16 filing requirements during the year ended December 31, 2024, except that Chad Steelberg reported one transaction on a late Form 4 filing. Michael Keithley reported one transaction on a late Form 4 filing. Michael Keithley reported one transaction on a late Form 4 filing. Michael Keithley reported one transaction on a late Form 4 filing. Michael Keithley reported one transaction on a late Form 4 filing. Michael Keithley reported one transaction on a late Form 4 filing, and Michael Zematra reported two transactions on a late Form 4 filing, and Michael Zematra reported two transactions on a late Form 4 filing. Going back to the proposals for the meeting, the board wants more shares to be made available. This one requires a majority of the outstanding shares to be in agreement, so your vote is more important than ever in this one. They also want an amendment to reflect Delaware law. The corporation wants to protect the offers of the company to avoid a personal liability for their actions. Another proposal is regarding the equity incentive plan. They are going to ask permission to grant more stock. Basically, Veritone wants more ammunition to attract and reward talent. More shares will give them the flexibility to offer competitive equity packages. This is good news. There's no automatic share increase each year. There are now strict compensation limits for non-employee directors. Finally, let's take a look at the overhang as of March 31, 2025. It's very high with over 8 million shares for just the stock options, which with a share price of $2.33 gives an overhang of more than $19 million. Now, let's put this all together. Veritone is asking stockholders to back its plans for the future. On the one hand, asking stockholders to agree to pay the consulting fees of former executives or giving more of the company to the current leaders. And officers can be seen as controversial. On the other hand, providing more financial protection to the executive team can foster a more business-friendly environment. Ultimately, the choice is yours, which is why these proxy statements are sent to you. Thanks for tuning into this video. I hope you learned something new about corporate reports. Now you can vote like a pro at the next meeting. If you like the video, please subscribe, like, and comment, and let me know what corporation you'd like me to discuss next.